Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draw odds are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. Remember, when you become a member of GoHunt.com/insider, you're going to get a $50 gift card to Go Hunt Gear Shop. What's in the gear shop? The best gear that you can buy for hunting the West. All in all, if you're hunting out West in 2018, GoHunt.com/insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Hey, folks, we got a new sponsor. It's called Buckwild Coffee. What's so special about Buckwild Coffee? Well, a gazillion people go to Starbucks every day and drink coffee. Well, why shouldn't Buckwild Coffee offer you light, medium, or dark roast with free shipping? All you have to do is go to whitetailrendezvous.com, go to shop, and order your coffee, and I'll ship it out for free. Hey, thanks so much for visiting Buckwild Coffee. The best brew in the West, the best brew around the campfire, the best brew in the hunting shack, the best brew anywhere. Buckwild Coffee. Get yours today. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're heading up to Wyoming and a friend up there, Zach Herold. Zach is the owner, founder, and chief host of Archery Maniacs. And we're going to get into a lot of things today, but Zach, welcome to the show and welcome to being part of the podcast world.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bruce. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and inviting me as a guest on your podcast. It means a lot, so thank you.
Well, I've been around a little bit, and I always like to find out and talk to other people that do have hunting related podcasts, and yours is based on archery for everything. I understand you do tournament and of course, DIY hunting. So, let's just start right there. Why did you start a podcast?
Yeah, so I started the podcast because I feel that archery is definitely one of those things that someone might get interested, and as soon as they start getting interested, they kind of don't know where to go after that, and they give up, basically, because it's not, archery can absolutely 100% be learned on your own, but most people are taught by somebody or taught by YouTube videos or taught by a podcast. So I'm so passionate about archery and where it has taken my life and, the opportunities that it provides me to be out with my son and my wife and other friends and family that I wanted to be able to share that and move that forward. So started a podcast, which was immediately followed by a YouTube channel, obviously. And then we launched an online series on the YouTube channel, which is all of our hunts from basically last year. Season 1 is live right now. We have episodes 1 through 8. And then I also have an online magazine for the exact same reason. Tells some hunting stories and things like that, but it also dives into tips and tactics and gear reviews and everything like that. And then on the YouTube channel, we do gear reviews as well. And all of it can also be found at www.archerymaniacs.com. And I'm hoping that it gives people the next step in archery so that they continue learning and growing and enjoying it rather than getting frustrated and giving up.
Yeah, because it's a learned art, archery. I can remember, my first days with just a simple fiberglass, stick and a string, and then moved up to
Right.
a Jennings wheel or compound bow. I can't even remember what they called it then, but the Jennings bow, and he started it all. I once read an article about how he did it. He was a tinkerer, and he kept on wanting to get his arrows to go faster and faster, and he figured it out. It was really kind of it was really kind of interesting, how the whole thing came together, and look where we are now.
Oh yeah.
It's unbelievable. Technology wise, what kind of gear do you like to use?
Um, I do use a compound, and I recently switched over to a single pin Hogfather sight. When I had multiple pins, my target panic was a lot worse than it is with a single pin. Um, so I just shoot with a single movable sight, and then I have a fall away arrow rest, and obviously attachable quiver, and I just shoot with a front stabilizer right now. But I clearly see the benefit of a back stabilizer as well. And I have recently switched from a index finger style release to a thumb style, and am in the process of making the switch there.
Wow, you got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoy it though, so it's a plus.
Well, yeah. When you think about all the gear that you do have, I learned a long time ago. The simpler you can make it, the better. One, because of I call it animal show up panic, not target panic. And just when that animal shows up, I just go, whoa, what am I going to do now? And if you can focus on that just one spot, it sure works. The old axiom, aim small, miss small, sure has stood the test of time. That's for sure.
Agreed, 100%.
Now, when you start practicing, we're in the prep season. The tags are starting to come in, and people are knowing where they're going to be hunting this year. How do you practice? Let's talk about and spend a little bit of time, because everybody is in the same boat now. They've got to get focused on the species they're hunting, and start getting it on, because it's only 90 days away. I mean, some seasons open up in August.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm not the guy that is gonna ever tell anyone that I practice every single day, because I don't. But I shoot my bow probably 3 to 5 times a week. Now, whether that's go out and shoot 10 arrows or go out and shoot 100 arrows, it varies, and it depends on what I have going on during that day. But when it's not close to actual hunting season, I'm not shooting my broadheads. And I will shoot I spend most of my time from 50 to 100 yards, um, shooting my bow. Sometimes I'll get to 40, but very rarely do I go up to 30 and 20. Um, so I'll be shooting those. And then as season starts getting closer, I have some practice broadheads. I shoot fixed blades. I have practice broadheads that I screw on, and then I shoot exclusively broadheads, um, all the way, even during hunting season. Because even though it may say shoots like a field point on the box, they're all lying.
What? Say that again?
It's breaking. Yeah, they're all lying, right? I mean, it literally would have to break the laws of physics for it to fly exactly like a field point. It has different wind surfaces and air surfaces, and the way that's going to catch and wind drift and spin, and all of it's going to be different no matter what. It's not possible. So I shoot exclusively with broadheads as I'm getting much closer to season, and the confidence then just goes through the roof. When I can step back at 80 yards and have 3 arrows with broadheads touching, that makes me feel extremely great in everything that I have going on, because I know that when I screw a sharp broadhead on rather than a dull broadhead, it's the exact same thing. It's just sharp, you know? So I start doing that as I'm moving closer. Another thing that I do is I will take my arrows after I pull them out of the target and I'm walking back. I'll just start throwing my arrows along the walk back to where I'm shooting. And then when I shoot those arrows, I just pick them up. I look at the target, and I try to mentally figure out what the range is. and then I range the target and see how close I was. And that does a few things. Very, very rarely have I talked, elk whispered or deer whispered and said, "Hey, please stop at exactly 50 yards. I would really appreciate it." I've tried.
Come
I've
on
tried
now.
really
That's
hard.
funny. That's too funny. No.
I've tried really hard, but they don't seem to listen very well to me.
Oh, that is
So
really too funny.
by going along and throwing my arrows out like that, they land at 43.5. They land at 58.2. All these really weird yardages that your animals stop at. So I pick up that arrow and I look at the target and I mentally say, okay, this looks like 37 yards. And then I range it and it's 44. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm judging short. I need to get better. And then I dial my sight, I draw back and I shoot. Now, not always do I dial to the exact yardage. So that's going to help me do a couple of things, right? So if I'm shooting a single pin slider sight, if I get used to having my sight
Where'd you go?
being where from me,
Yeah.
you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Where'd you lose me? I don't know what happened.
The flight you were at, you dropped the arrow 33, you thought it was 33, it was 47. So you made some adjustments and then you were working on that.
Yeah. So not always do I adjust to the specific yardage when I'm in practice. And the reason that I do that is because if I don't have time to adjust my sight, then I want to know where I need to hold. So sometimes I will purposely leave my sight at, say, 50 yards, and I will shoot 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65 yards, all while it's set at 50, and learn where I need to hold. So if I get in a pinch situation, I don't need to move anything. So that's some of the stuff that I start doing as season is moving forward. I will also shoot with elevated heart rate, with weight in a backpack and things like that.
It's amazing. I love what you're bringing up on this subject because, and I've been guilty of it through the years, but I soon learned that all the elk I came in contact with, all the whitetails I came in contact with, all the other critters that I came in contact with, they weren't, they weren't in my backyard. They weren't in a range. They weren't in any environment that I had ever practiced in. And
Yep.
yeah, you can go to some of these silhouette and 3-day target places and uphill and downhill, and that's all good. But it's not, it's not sagebrush. It's not oak brush. It's not black timber. And all those things, and all of a sudden the sight picture, even though you're looking at an elk and you get your pin, the whole surroundings is different. And I think that takes away from our accuracy. And I think that's one reason a lot of people miss, because they're not used to that environment. And oh my God, I ranged him, he's 40 yards, but there's a tree I have to stoop under. I have to actually kneel on the ground and shoot my bow kneeling to get through that opening.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. Especially, and I practice shooting off my roof as well. And I practice shooting on as steep a slopes as I can find. Anyone that is hunting. In Wyoming, I've seen whitetails even up there at the 8,000 foot mark. I've seen whitetails up really high in Wyoming, and I've hunted them up there, but it's the same thing. You're not standing on a perfectly flat level ground. So, a friend of mine, they were practicing for redding, and they were taking sandbags and just throwing them in a pile and then standing on top of that pile of sandbags and practicing. And that seems like extremely smart to me, because the likelihood of both your feet being perfectly level when you're hunting is very, very slim. So getting used to, standing 1 foot up and 1 foot down, or your legs spread out farther, or kneeling down, and all that kind of stuff is really important. And then on top of it, getting used to shooting with an elevated heart rate. So, whether you shoot from 50 yards and you run up and you touch your target, you come back to your bow and you shoot again, or you have a pack with, 80 pounds in it, and you shoot and you walk up a small incline behind you, and then you come back down, you grab your bow and you shoot again. All of that is going to force you to shoot different than when you're standing there breathing normal on level ground. Because when an elk comes out, or a big whitetail comes out, everyone knows your heart rate elevates and you're breathing harder. You're not as steady, everything. So if you can simulate breathing harder when you're practicing, when it comes crunch time and that 170-inch whitetail steps out, your heart being elevated isn't going to be different to you because that's how you've been practicing at home, you know? And then the other two things that you really want to focus on is where your anchor point, your peep is lining up, and the grip on your bow. Because when that animal walks out, the adrenaline kicks in, and you have a tendency to grab on your bow with all your might, and then just jerk your bow back. So you're probably pulling more pressure against it than usual. So you really want to focus that when you're looking through your peep, you have the same view of that sight housing that you've been viewing all practice. You really want to focus on not grabbing that bow because it's obviously going to torque it, and then away it goes.
Then away it goes. And everything we talked about, we've unfortunately done this, in one shape or form. We're guilty. It's just
right, yeah.
We're guilty of it, and it just amazes me. Some people said, "Well, he was right there, and 30 yards, and I missed him." Well, it was a 10-degree angle. 10 degrees is really steep, folks. And
yeah,
it's a 10-degree angle, and that's why shooting off roofs. I know guys that'll put up a telephone pole in their backyard, hang their stand, and climb their stand and shoot out to their kill range, whatever, 30, 40, 50, 10 yard, 20 yard, 32 yards, whatever that is, and they'll just lock in on their 3D target, and and they'll do it, and they'll do a 180. The guys that I know really get into this, they'll move the target 180, they go up, shoot, get a group of 3 or whatever, then they'll move it so they're shooting, from left to right or right to left. So they get used to those twistings, in your stand.
Yep.
You're in your stand, you're in your harness, folks. You better be in your safety harness, and you're in your harness and you're twisting, and everything's set up as if you're in your hang on, and that helps because the moment of when he walks out, Mr. Wonderful walks out, then you're ready. You don't have to think about all this other crap. It's not crap.
Yeah, and on top of it, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, 100% you need to have a harness on, but you also need to realize and practice with a harness on, because when you go to turn and that lanyard starts getting tight and pulling you one way or the other, you're not shooting like you're shooting on flat ground anymore. It's a whole different feeling. So that's a really good point to practice with a harness on as well. Because I'm telling you, when you get up there and you clip that harness in, you're like, oh man, this feels great. But when you get clipped in, knock an arrow and try drawing your bow back and feel the restrictedness, how restricted you are with what kind of coat you have on, how tight your harness is, how tight your lanyard is, everything. Make sure that you can even draw your bow back because you might need to loosen something up.
Yeah, and that's all. This is good prep. This is best. We could come up with today because this is great content. Because people, you just don't think about it. You go out, man. You're drilling at 100 yards. I mean, you're just stacking arrows. You get a Robin Hood, you just trash a $6 arrow, and it's all well and good. And then you get in the actual situation, and it's all different. And that type of practice. I remember I used to practice from the hay mound and shoot down into bales of hay. That's 10 feet, 15 feet. Anything to change up the angle and to make it work for you. So the muscle memory and all that, it's somewhat neutral, because when those critters come out, my heart rate just goes through the roof.
Yeah, 100%. And you'll learn too, once you start shooting from the roof or from, sloped angles or setting up your tree stand and shooting from there, you'll learn real quick how important your third axis adjustment on your sight is.
Well, let's go over that again.
Yeah.
So
the third axis is really hard to explain. But basically your sight housing, the dovetail on your sight housing and your sight box need to be at a perfect 90 degrees, because if they're not at a perfect 90 degrees, then as you raise your bow up or point your bow down, the level is going to be reading incorrectly to it actually being level because that sight is not at a perfect 90 degrees to the dovetail. And that can cause you can be 14, 20 inches off at 40 yards if you have a steep downhill or uphill shot. I mean, it's crazy.
Hope that you grasp that with Zach sharing. These are some great insight tips. Now, are these some of the things you get into on your podcast?
Yes, absolutely. We dive deep into all kinds of stuff like this because it's, there's, before I even knew what third axis was, I went out and I was shooting at a target that I'd placed down in the bottom of a draw at 40 yards. And I started shooting and I aimed right in the middle and I hit 10 inches to the right. And I thought to myself, I said, well, that's really weird. I shot again and I almost hit the same arrow. And I was also shooting like a quartering away angle. And I was like, that's really weird. So then when I had no idea what third axis was and the importance of it, I thought to myself, I said, that's so weird that when I shoot downhill and quartering away, I need to aim farther to the left. I just had absolutely no idea. And then I started learning more about it. And I'm like, now I look back at it, it makes perfect sense. Oh, my third axis was completely off. No wonder why I couldn't hit the target.
Isn't that something? Yeah, because I had never, and I shoot a crossbow just because I got some pins on my shoulder anyway. But think about that now, everything has to be in balance. And that's the hardest thing for some people to realize. And the traditional archers, they always canted their bow and it was all instinctive, but
Yep.
they took a lot of things out of play just by having very simple gear. And that's, I guess, one reason I always enjoyed, shooting, traditional gear, because there wasn't anything. It was just me. If I have the memory, I take the shot and we go from there.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's like, you'll hear of people talking about shooting in the wind, right? And they say you have two ways that you can shoot in the wind. You can either hold off your point of impact, or you can hold on your point of impact and you can cant your bow into the wind, right?
Right.
So think about that. So when you cant your bow, it is basically allowing you to shoot your arrow the way that you are canting your top cam. So if you're leaning it to the right, your arrow is going to go farther right. If you're leaning it to the left, your arrow is going to go farther left. So that plays directly into your third axis. If your sight housing is not perfectly perpendicular to the rail that is bolted to the riser of your bow, then it is telling you that it's level. Your sight bubble is telling you that it's level when it's actually not. So you're either canting your top cam left or you're canting your top cam right, which there forces you to be shooting left and rights as you get farther distances.
Hope you're taking notes, folks, because some of this, just go to, I'm sure Zach's got this on his YouTube channel. Did you discuss this on the YouTube channel?
Yeah, we don't have the videos up themselves. We're actually working on revamping all of our tips and tactics to where they are all videos. But we have a bunch of podcasts out that are in the tips and tactics categories that cover this kind of stuff. But just keep checking back because, like I say, we're going to revamp all of our tips and tactics so that they are a video form so you can see what in the heck that I am talking about.
And that's what we got to do. And I go back to this. This is why these podcasts exist, is because you can learn so much different stuff. Let's switch it up. I know you do some tournament, but I want to get on to whitetail hunting, since this is Whitetail Rendezvous podcast. And you're hunting multi states. Now, I know Wyoming. I've killed some Wyoming whitetails out by the northeast section, of the state. I've turkey hunted out there, and in the warm Wyoming portion of the Black Hills and up in that country. And I didn't see any big deer. I saw a lot of deer. There's tremendous amount of deer out there. And I never hunted by Riverton. Now, I understood there's some up by Riverton. There's along those drainages there. You have to be careful of the Indian reservation, but there is some land you can get in that area. Would you say in Wyoming that in all the major drainages there are whitetails today?
Yeah, it's honestly crazy. Where places where I used to never see whitetails in Wyoming, there is now solid populations of whitetail. Um, like to the effect that time you go by, you see a whitetail deer. Um, so getting her is a drain.
So anyway, folks, we had a little technical difficulty. I will edit this out, and we'll go from there. So recapping here, Zach, we're talking about whitetails in Wyoming, and then we're going to move
Yeah,
out of Wyoming and going hunting whitetails throughout the whitetail range, which is significant. So, in Wyoming, I think you were saying that just about any drainage that's got the right cover with the food source nearby has whitetails in Wisconsin. Is that from Bozeman, Montana to, Cheyenne, Wyoming?
yeah, yeah. I, you know, it, it's crazy because in Wyoming there used to be places where you didn't see any, and it's you don't have that anymore, and I think it's kind of cool because I like seeing the whitetails population growing for sure.
Yeah, I know. A while back, we made a trip, and the first time I saw whitetails, they were on the eastern part of the state, and they weren't that big. There were a lot of them, and they were all in the cottonwoods, right on the river bottom, right where you expect, and then the muleys were down there or up in the prairie or whatever, and so you knew they were going. I'm just waiting for some hot spots to get up, so Wyoming would become the new Kansas.
I think it has the potential. I mean, every year there's several Wyoming bucks that get shot over 180 inches, and that's a big whitetail.
Oh yeah, but you can see them. I remember seeing whitetails, by the 20s, 30s, 50s, on some of the ag fields, the pivot fields, and on the alfalfa chomping away. I'm going, geez, they're kind of like they're not antelope, but they're just out there and they're saying, "Haha, you can't shoot me. I'm too far away," type deal.
No kidding, right? Or they're on private land usually.
Well, usually, and folks, this is pretty much a DIY, public land podcast today. That's for sure. So, okay, so Wyoming, folks, if you're not hunting Wyoming for whitetail, you should. A couple of years ago, I took my grandson up to Crazy Woman Creek Ranch for his first whitetail hunt, and because I knew it was a slam dunk, and we were done pretty quick, and he did harvest his deer, and that was it. But there's just so many opportunities, and don't miss Wyoming. If you're going out Wyoming, antelope hunting, traditional, antelope, mule deer hunts, and don't forget to get a whitetail tag, because if there's any drainages, creek bottoms, there's going to be whitetails there. I'm not going to say you're going to see a booner, but I'm going to tell you that there's substantial whitetail hunting, and for all you authors and writers, and I want to find the next best place to write about, spend some time in Wyoming. I don't have any honey holes, I don't have any secrets, but I know.
Here's a hot special for all Whitetail Rendezvous listeners. The Hunting Buddy app is giving away an all expenses paid free range whitetail hunt at ABC New York Ranch this fall. You'll be hunting with NASCAR driver Spencer Boyd and the Hunting Buddy team, all the while being filmed by a professional film crew from Rush Outdoors, as seen on the Pursuit channel. To enter the contest for free, go to huntingbuddy.app.com. Click the Huge Hunt Giveaway section tab and download the app. When you upgrade to the Outfitter plan, you get 30 additional giveaway entries. Hunting Buddy app is your best choice for staying safe in the woods with their patent-pending safety notification system. So Lunar information including peak game, activity times, current and future weather forecasts, land ownership, hunting waypoints, group hunting, and so much more, all for free from Hunting Buddy app. That's HUNT apostrophe N BUDDY app.
You find water, you find cover, you're going to find whitetails.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, most of the time as a non-resident, when you come into Wyoming, or you're gonna have a tag that you can hunt mule deer or whitetails. But definitely, if you are interested in the whitetails, the the main population of whitetails is up in the northeastern portion of Wyoming for sure. I mean, the population up there is insane. I mean, you could literally go in a day and see 500 whitetails. I mean, it's insane. They're everywhere up there. Um, so if you are looking for, and I've seen some stomper bucks up there too, probably pushing 170s. Um, I drove by a field one time and I counted 115 different whitetail bucks uh, up out of Sheridan, Wyoming. I mean, it was insane. There was whitetail deer everywhere, and we stopped and started glassing them, and they all started standing up and then flagging and running across the field. It was insane. It was just like, what the heck, man? Like, wow, that was super cool.
Must have been up by ranch land.
Yeah, it was just northwest of Sheridan out there.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk. We've done our good deed for Wyoming tourism and tags, but let's talk about the other states and start with your most favorite out of state whitetail hunting destination.
So I kind of have a few, and they're kind of all tied, but they're tied for different reasons, right? So I really like going and hunting like Pennsylvania and Georgia, purely because when I go on that hunt, it's a hunt to go see good buddies, just go have a good time, and we all get to go hunt together and just have a lot of fun, right? Um, but then on the flip side, I go to places like South Dakota or Nebraska, and they're a lot closer to where I live. They're over-the-counter tags with a bow, over-the-counter tags, and it's like another tag that can be in my back pocket. So if I didn't draw, like this year I didn't draw Nevada, so rather than hunting in August, I can flip it and take one of those tags and hunt either early season or late season because they offer such a good opportunity. Um, but it's really great knowing that you can go to a state like South Dakota or Nebraska and just buy the tag and go hunting. You don't have to tentatively plan on drawing the tag. You just buy the tag and go. So you can plan on it, plan the dates that you want to go and everything, make the whole plan, and then just go buy the tag and go. And those are the kind of hunts that I look for, because I hunt enough in Wyoming and other draw states that I'm looking for a tag that I can 100% count on and plan on, and that is definitely South Dakota and Nebraska.
Now in South Dakota, is that West River or East River?
Let's see. I hunted. I believe it was West River.
And when I'm talking about, folks, it's the Missouri River. If you live east of the Missouri River, you're East River. West of the Missouri River, you're in the Black Hills or West River.
Yep. It just basically goes right through the middle of it, and you just pick one side or the other and get your bow tag. And at least that's what we got. We got bow tags, and just went there, looked on a map, and had some help from some people as well, but just found a big chunk of public and went hunting.
So do you do any Google scouting or anything, or you just kind of roll it?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Well, when I say Google scouting, I use Onyx hunt maps probably as much or more than Google for hunts like that. Purely because it's not like, if I'm scouting for high country mule deer, I'm looking for specific land features and terrain and things like that I can't see very well on Onyx hunt maps. Because maybe you can, but I don't know of a way to like tilt Onyx hunt maps and look at the land features, right? But when I'm looking in Nebraska or South Dakota or even North Dakota for that matter, I'm looking for big chunks of public land that are hard to get to. So Onyx hunt maps is gold for that because it obviously shows all the public and private lands. So it makes it a lot easier to be looking for big chunks of public land on your computer screen than it does on your phone.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That surely does. Moving from whitetail and onto DIY wilderness, we talked about putting 100 pounds on your back and going in 8 or 10 miles. Now most people without horses on foot, 5 miles is kind of the barrier. Depends, how the trailhead's set up, and if you're climbing for 5 miles and then getting where, or it's an easier access. None of the accesses are easier. That's the wrong word, but when you go in 8 or 10 miles, I mean that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a ways in there for sure. Um, it it comes down to like two things really: your preparation, your mental toughness. Because that whole 8 miles, I can promise you right now, you're walking in there thinking, I'm probably not going to see anything. I hope I see something, but I'm probably not. Maybe I should go to this spot over here. It's closer. You do that the whole 8 miles. Like so the mental toughness is probably more important than a lot of really anything else. Um, just got to be mentally tough and believe that the spot that you have picked out is the spot that you need to go. And as long as that happens, you can go all the way in there. And, doing that on an elk hunt is probably, if you're by yourself, is probably not the smartest thing. That's pretty tough to get a whole elk out that many miles. But a deer, if you bone a deer out and you have your whole camp and everything like that, I would advise you just to dump your leftover food out, not the wrappers in the garbage, obviously, but um, if you're 8 miles in there and you shot your deer, you were planning on being there for 8 days, and you shot your deer the second day. Um, if my pack is so heavy that I can pour out 20 pounds of food that was there for the whole trip, I would probably do that, you know. But if it's only like a difference of 5 pounds, I'm just gonna leave it because I don't want to buy it when I get back, you know. Um, but yeah, and just like you said, it really depends on the terrain and things like that as well. If you have a good trailhead and some sort of a hiking trail going in there, um, then the hike is not near as bad. Now, if you're basically breaking trail and going off on your own the whole way, then 4 miles is going to feel like 6 or 7 miles. It just really depends.
Now, and one comment on that: use your trailhead. Use existing map trails for a lot of different reasons. One, safety, especially DIY solo. Safety reasons, because when you finally decide, okay, there's that drainage, it's the black swamp drainage, that's where I'm headed, you can leave a rock cairn with a can and say, if I'm not, if my truck isn't out of here in 5 days, then I'm hurting them up in the black swamp drainage. Plus, once you go in drainage, probably nobody else is up there, and so you have a reference point, even for yourself coming out in the dark, or there's so many things that can happen in the backcountry. So I'm about safety, and I like using the trailhead simply for that, to sort of kind of let people know where you're going. And two, then you just save yourself hours. Don't just decide, oh, we're going to go to Black Buck Mesa because I know there's a big buck in there, and start going cross country. Yeah, you can do it, but it's going to take so much out of you. So think smart. If you have to walk 3 miles out of your way on a given trail, then come back, 2 miles, that's a heck of a lot of better in my mind, because you want to be smart in the backcountry, because you fall down. I mean, you're on your own. You might have a sat phone, you might have, your cell phone, everything, but for people getting you out and all that stuff, I've always erred on the side of, if I go down, okay, I'm going to live, I'm not going to die, but can somebody get me out?
Yeah, and it depends on what kind of trip I'm going on as to how many of those rules that you just stated that I follow. I always tell several people that I can trust, namely my wife, my dad, and a few good buddies, exactly where I'm going. And say, hey, I'm planning on being there no longer than 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, however long. If I'm not back, you don't hear from me by then, this is the drainage. This is exactly where I'm going. Send help. Because nowadays, there's so many people out there that are hunting and trying to follow you to where you go and all kinds of things like that, that finding your own spot is becoming harder and harder. It truly is. Um, and then on top of it, I have a Delorme inReach. So if something ever were to happen, I can turn that on. I can press an SOS button, and then a Flight for Life helicopter comes in as well. Um, Now, on the flip side, when I take my son or my wife with me, um, it's a lot less daredevil, I guess you could say. Um, we take it easier, a lot easier, things like that. I mean, my son's only 5. When he was 4, we went on a 2-night backpacking trip, and altogether we walked about, I don't know, 10, 15 miles, and but it was all down the trail and things like that. Now, when I go by myself, it's like a whole different ball game, because I'm more worried about hurting him than I am hurting myself. I guess is probably the best way to put it. Um, and that's not like a macho man thing or a look at me thing. It's more like I know what I can get away with when I'm by myself, I guess. And certain people know exactly where I am, and then I feel that having that Delorme inReach, that's kind of like my safety net, I guess you could put it. Is kind of the way that I look at it, anyways.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up about um, claim jumpers or honey hole jumpers. I hadn't really thought about that. I had thought about where in the times I was back there and doing what I was doing, DIY solo hunting. Um, One, somebody always knew where I was, but I would leave. I just leave it on, plastic thing on the windshield of the truck and say, hey, I'm not. If this truck ain't gone in 5 days, something's wrong. But
Yeah,
it has changed. It has changed so drastically, and that's a point well taken, folks. You talk about your honey holes for bass fishing, for certainly for whitetail, honey holes for anything, and it isn't the way it used to be. And I, Zach, that was really good for you to bring that up because I'm living in a time that you know um, it just wasn't that problem. We didn't have it.
yeah.
If somebody was
You're
hunting,
living in a time where if both of you guys saw a buck, the first guy that saw it, the second guy would graciously be like, "Yeah, you go for it."
yeah,
Nowadays,
and I'll help you drag it out and gut it
racing.
out. I'll help you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've literally had out of staters watch us get into our vehicle after gassing up at a gas station, and we had like our Sitka on, and we've literally had them follow us to wherever we decided to park and park right next to us. Like, geez, man.
Yeah, I can't. I was going to say I can't relate to that, but we were at a public, fishing lake up in the mountains, and um,
Yep.
we walked in, and it was just Logan and my grandson, 12 years old, and the guy goes, "Hey, take my spot, you guys. I'm leaving. I caught 5 right here, slip bobber, power bait, 5 feet. You'll get them." So we're there set up, perfect guy. You couldn't ask for a nicer guy, and he was gone. Then it wasn't an hour later. This group said, "How they biting?" Well, they're biting, and we got a good place, blah blah blah. And they said, and they didn't even ask; they just sat down and started fishing. And I
Yeah.
left. I just left. First thing I said, well, between here and that rock, we're going to keep fishing there. And I just said, I, I couldn't believe it. But then I reflected back on it when it's a Memorial Day weekend. It's everybody's just out for a good time. They're not fishing. It just,
Right. Right.
but it's just, it's just the sense of it. And, I can believe, guys from out of state would say, oh, they're locals. Look at their tags. We're going to follow them. And, you know, folks, if you're doing that, stop. Really, because you're not hunting. You're really not hunting. And if you're that insecure, and I'll call you out, if you're that insecure about what you're doing, don't go in the woods. What are you going to do if you get an elk down? What are you going to do if you get a deer down? Go over to those guys and say, "Oh, could you help me gut out my deer?" I mean,
Well, and being somebody that hunts a lot of other states, but has also had people come hunt Wyoming and do that to me. it's not like we have any issue helping anyone. A resident hunter has no issue helping a non-resident if it's gone about correctly. If somebody walks up to me and is hunting in Wyoming for the first time and they say, "Tell me where to go, please," I don't want to help them. But if they say, "Hey, my son and I are here on our first elk hunt. Here's the tag that we have drawn. Here's some of the spots that we thought would be good. What do you think about those spots?" I would help those people until I was blue in the face, because they came up to me. They clearly put in the work. They clearly looked at the maps. They clearly did everything they know to do, except went and put boots on the ground. And when you're hunting from 20 hours away, the likelihood of you being able to make a separate trip to put boots on the ground is very slim. So if they came up to me and they saw me there and they said, "Hey, this is, we drew this tag. We're trying to get it done with the rifle or with the bow. I don't really care. And these are the dates that we have to hunt. These are spots that we were looking at. What do you think about those spots?" I would tell them not only what I think about those spots, but I would tell them where I have seen elk if I have hunted in that area, because they clearly put in the time and they went about it the correct way. But if they walked up to me and they would have said, "Can you please, you're clearly from here. Can you please tell us where to go?" I'd tell them to F off, and I'd have got in my truck and left. You know what I mean?
It's just, this is, I don't know if you're right, or maybe we should collaborate on writing an article for, for somebody, because the good part is you and I both, would help somebody. They come up to you and they got it figured out. They just need some direction. Heck yeah. The other side is, no, I ain't going to do anything. I got to go to work. What do you mean you got to go to work? Well, I work at I work at the hunting store. That's why I'm dressed this way. Stupid. Oh, this is wild. No, we're talking about stuff, unfortunately, for folks, that is real. So, check your ego, check everything. And, once you come out west, just be a good neighbor. I learned long time ago from a rancher, and went up and was back in the day. You could do what I did. And I worked on his ranch all summer. And he said, we didn't have lock gates, but he said, "There's the horses, there's the Jeep. You need anything, there's the cabins, and have fun elk hunting." And it takes 22 points to hunt that ranch, and but I hunted it every year that I wanted to hunt it or put in for it. But he said, the whole thing people don't understand, and I get lots of people knocking on my door, is that you just got to be a good neighbor. And that's a concept, that just be a good neighbor, and you don't come over to a guy's house and say, "Hey, I want to use your truck," and you never talked to him before. I mean, would you do that? I don't think so. I wouldn't let Zach have my Power Stroke if he just came over. "Hey, I want to take your truck out west and go hunting in it and bring it back, beat the shit." But if Zach said, no, but if Zach said a year before, "Hey, let's go elk hunting," I go, "Zach, let's grab a beer or have a soda or cook, let's talk about it, and let's figure out if you're right for me and I'm right for you to go hunting." And then
Yep.
we might jump into Power Stroke and go kill some stuff. Yeah, I don't know, folks. Let us know. Zach Herold at Archery Maniacs, and Bruce Hutchin at Whitetail Rendezvous. I love this topic because, this is about hunting. This is one of the reasons hunting is in the decline, because people are doing silly stuff that don't force it as a sport. I mean,
Yep.
it's pretty much that simple. And how are you going to teach your kids? Oh, this is how you do it. You go wait in the gas station, wait at Quick Trip or Sinclair, and you see a local, and then you just follow them. Well, that is following sign, though.
Yeah.
Holy right. How do we get off on that, Zach?
I don't know. That's the mysteries of podcasting.
Yeah. Anything to close out on that little segment of?
Yeah, I think the best thing to close out on is just do your work and realize that the people that are out there killing giants, they're killing those giants because they're putting in the work and helping you if you go about it the right way. if you call up the Brian Barneys and the Ryan Lampers and these people like this and the Chuck Adams and the Randy Olmers, and you say, please tell me where you go, they're never going to help you. But if you call them up and you say, hey, I was looking at this drainage and it has rimrock and it's got some aspens and it looks like it has a little bit of a water seep over here, and but it's kind of close to this trailhead. What are your thoughts on that? Should I try and find something that's a little farther away from the trailhead? They would help you all day long, and so would I. I would do it too. So put in the work and go about it the right way, and you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you.
Let's talk about the hunting tradition. Obviously, it's deep and wide in your life. You talk about your 5-year-old son, your wife, and let's talk about that as we kind of sort of meander towards the end of the show.
Yeah. So I went on. I've been hunting for a long time. The first time I went was I rode in the saddle panniers on the way up a mountain when I was 2 years old to go help pack out an elk. And ever since then, I've been going hunting. And while I like shooting a great big deer as much as the next person that hunts, obviously that's super awesome, right? But being out there and experiencing it with the people that are always going to be around, until they're not, is more important. I took him out, and he was actually sitting on my shoulders when I shot a cow elk with a rifle, and he's been completely into it ever since then. We're walking up to this elk that I shot, and he looks at me and goes, Dad, can I pet it? And ever since then, it's just been so much more about having him along or doing it with my dad or helping my wife be successful or somebody else be successful for that matter. And I mean, once again, I still have the hunts that I do all by myself where it is obviously all about myself. And I think that's important to do because I'm an extremely, extremely competitive person. And I think that's very important for me to do because then when I have the hunts where it's just my son and I, where I have to realize that he's 5 years old and the likelihood of us putting it all together with a 5-year-old right there is a lot much more of a challenge than when I'm by myself, obviously. But I remember when he was 4, we went on that elk hunt and we stayed out in grizzly and wolf country 2 nights, 3 days, and walked about, 15 miles, somewhere around there. And we saw grizzlies. We had a pack of wolves at 24 yards. We almost shot 2 elk. And this one elk bugles. I mean, it's really foggy, and he just lets out this giant scream. And my son, 4 at the time, turns and looks at me and goes, Dad, did you hear that giant elk? And that's something that I will never forget in my life. While I have, I've shot maybe 50 or so animals with a bow, and I have antlers all over. I think about that moment in time of him saying that more than I relive all these other hunts with all the antlers, and he and I didn't even shoot anything, So it's just important to me to be out there with the people that I love and that I enjoy experiencing it together. And I think people would be really surprised if you teach your kids just a little bit about being quiet. They obviously can't walk as fast as you can, so it forces me to stalk lower and more methodical than when I'm by myself, which is probably 9 times out of 10 is a good thing. There's a time to go fast, obviously, but when I'm with him, I have to go slower so that he can keep up. And it's amazing to me how good that works, being forced to go slower.
Wow, I'm just sitting here playing some my own tapes, and I was calling elk in Colorado, and my son, he was probably 10 or 11. I don't think he was much older than that. So he was just hanging right with me, and we were set up right, and I was just cow calling, meowing and stuff like that, and all of a sudden, thump, 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 a fawn, a mule deer fawn, I got her, touched her with my arrow, and his eyes just got huge. I mean, it was like, the reality of what just happened, even for me, I was going, oh my goodness. But I called him this fawn I mean, to no distance. And it was just, for him to experience that, to see, what nature has to give you, or what you can experience in nature. And, it just, when you were saying that story, I was reflecting back on that same story. He was just right there, and his eyes got so big, and he didn't move, didn't do anything. And this doe sniffing, and, just trying to find this fawn sniffing all around, trying to find out what, what this cow elk wasn't there. Well, with that, I think that I couldn't end it on a better thing about the hunting tradition. You summed it up, Zach, with, take your kids, 2 years old, you're bouncing in a panner, 5 years old, your son out mixing it up with wolves and grizzly bears. And, I can't wait to do this again or get on your show. Love to be on your show.
Absolutely.
And chit chat more about the hunting, what we are as hunters and what we are as people, and the stories that we have to share because of the critters we've chased.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I appreciate everything. I clearly appreciate what you're doing with your podcast and your brand. And then I obviously appreciate the opportunity to hop on the show and just talk some hunting and kind of what it means to both of us for the past hour or so. That was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Hey, I'm looking forward to having Jacob Hacker on the show. He's a regional sales manager for Spy Point. Spy Point trail cameras. But they're more than that. They are technology that will increase your hunting odds tremendously. And he'll be going through and talking about trail cameras and the application of them. Yeah, he's going to be talking about Spy Point and features and benefits and advantages of that product line. But more important, he's going to be talking about how you can get the max use of whatever trail camera you're using. Doesn't matter the brand. What it does matter is location, location, location. And time and time and time. And listen to the show, you'll figure all that out. But Jacob, as he likes to be known, is a passionate whitetail hunter who understands what it really takes to be successful and to how to zero in on the bucks on your hit list and hunt them one at a time. And either the buck wins or you win. It's going to be quite a show, and I just look forward to hearing Jacob share his insights on hunting mature whitetail bucks.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.